Hello and welcome to episode 375 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, as always joined by Evan Silva, and the NFL offseason dead zone is here. Coaching change season is over. Free agency season is over. The draft is over. Now we are in probably my least favorite time of the year, aka best shape of his life season. Running back is splitting out wide season, all this other bullshit season. Evan, summer is here. How's it going, buddy?
It's going well. Been able to enjoy the improved weather. Had Rob Wozniak come over at Woz NFL to help me with my setup, and I think it's looking a little bit better. Baby steps.
You may have noticed that on the last couple of podcasts, Evan didn't sound quite as nice. He was using the dong mic or a computer mic, not the very fancy Shure mic he is using today. Shout out to Rob for coming over. It's so funny. Rob sent us a note. It's like, here's what I did. I took Evan's laptop off of a bunch of books that he had them propped up on. I was like, okay.
I put the books back. The books are back.
The books are back. As soon as Rob leaves, Evan just puts the books back up to prop up his setup. All right, whatever.
It's like those the guys that go on Bar Rescue with John Taffer, and he just tears it apart, and then within 2 weeks, like the bar's back to how they liked it before.
Of course. On today's show, we are going to talk about some of the minicamp / OTA news, and I use the term news very lightly, that we've had over the last week or so. We're going to play a game of real or BS. Before we get into it today, I just got to reiterate, this summer you're going to hear a ton of people with their fantasy rankings, with their hot takes, and honestly, so much of it is just straight BS, just people pulling stuff out of their ass. I can't stress enough how seriously we take the process of projecting players for the season. Evan and I put together this entire team of analysts to follow, analyze the news, everything that we know, to keep our rankings and projections constantly, continuously in a good place as we approach the season. There are two versions of the draft kit for sale right now. The $29 version covers season-long drafts only, which is basically everything you need for home leagues. For $49 is the pro version. You get everything that's in the regular draft kit, plus season-long props, dynasty, best ball, rest of season 150 rankings for trades each week during the season. $49 version is where it's at, obviously. Finally, this podcast is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy, who has a incredible, mind-blowing $10 million best ball tournament this season. $2 million to first, $1 million to second, $1 million to regular season champ on a $25 buy-in. Anyone who gets the Draft Kit Pro, I repeat, the pro version, whether you have an underdog or not, if you get Draft Kit Pro, you will get a free $10 in your account sometime in June. More details coming soon on that. And if you don't have an underdog account, of course, use promo code ETR. Matching sign-up bonus up to $100. All right. Let's get into it here, Evan. I want to start with real or BS on this Jimmy Garoppolo thing. So, Kyle Shanahan gets up there in front of the press, and the coaches meet with the media during all these OTAs things. And Kyle Shanahan's quote was, "I expect that sometime Jimmy G will be traded, but it's not a guarantee. The trading went on hold," he says, "when the surgery happened." And this is kind of what we've assumed for a long time, but he hasn't really come out and said it. And my initial thought was like, man, if you're trying to get the most for Jimmy G, why wouldn't you say, listen, we're going to have a competition between Trey Lance and Jimmy G. We think Jimmy G is a really good NFL starter. That's, to me, how you get the most for him in a trade. Kyle Shanahan obviously disagreed. He's a much smarter guy than me. Evan, real or BS on this Kyle Shanahan quote about Jimmy G getting traded?
Yeah, this is a tough one to decipher. I mean, because the 49ers know that they can win with Jimmy G. He has a 31-14 career record with San Francisco. He's been to a Super Bowl. They came awfully close to going to the Super Bowl last year, but he had major throwing shoulder surgery on March 8th that had like a 6-month timetable. So that has really, I think, posed the biggest obstacle. What team wants to trade for a quarterback coming off major surgery on his throwing arm without having him, having seen him make a full recovery, and has to pay a premium, which is what the 49ers have been allegedly asking, has to pay Jimmy Garoppolo's contract, which isn't among the biggest in the NFL at the quarterback position at this point, but is still a significant number on their salary cap. I've found it interesting that there have been a number of 49ers offensive players saying that they're not even in touch with Jimmy G. It's almost like, he's not in the quarterback room, and the 49ers have kind of like, set him to the side so as to not even tempt themselves into wanting to start him over Trey Lance and focusing on Trey Lance's development.
Mm-hmm.
So my sense is that he is going to at least not be, a prominent part of the quarterback conversation in San Francisco, even in the event that they can't trade him. It seems like they have kind of cut him off at this point.
I think this is real. I think this quote was real. And I think maybe Kyle Shanahan has 2-3 teams in mind. And so by saying that he's going to get traded, well, you can still get some leverage there by teams competing against each other to get Jimmy G once he's healthy. We've had the assumption in our rankings all offseason that it's going to be Trey Lance. It's going to be Trey Lance 100% of the time. We have Trey Lance as our quarterback 11 on Underdog. He's going as quarterback 13. Obviously, we saw some up and down play from Trey Lance as a rookie, but man, he had really good fantasy game. One time out and a serviceable one. Second time out. I mean, you can see the upside in Trey Lance for sure. And so I'll go ahead and call this one real. We're projecting 100% of snaps for Trey Lance this year.
All right. I like it. I have Trey Lance right now as quarterback 10 in my rankings and tiers.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like him in that spot. So that's where I've got him right now.
Okay. CeeDee Lamb. This one was kind of funny. I mean, they're like, CeeDee Lamb's working so hard this offseason. He put on 10 pounds of muscle and he grew a half an inch. I'm like, oh my God. Not only do we have to live through best shape of his life season, now we have to live through guys growing a half an inch. But the picture, CeeDee Lamb looked like he was skinny, but in good shape. We haven't spent a lot of time on CeeDee Lamb yet this offseason, but with Amari gone and Michael Gallup hurt, I mean, you can really make a case to be really high on CeeDee Lamb. I think we'd agree that this half-inch BS doesn't really matter, but generally, what are your thoughts on CeeDee heading into this year?
Yeah, I mean, CeeDee Lamb did not turn 23 until April. So, he's still a young dude. It still seems like a pretty significant growth spurt for a guy who's now 23 years old. Either way, yeah, I mean, I don't think that's the big story here. The big story here is that Amari Cooper is gone. Michael Gallup is coming off ACL, MCL surgery on January 3rd. Cedric Wilson is gone. There's a ton of opportunity for CeeDee Lamb in the Dallas offense. I want to see him play primarily in the slot, but I think that either way, he's going to end up with a ton of targets, and he's a guy to be excited about in 2022.
We have him 15th overall right now, which is obviously very, very high. I mean, you're not getting any bargains on CeeDee Lamb. His ADP is 14th overall in Underdog. So, yeah, I mean, people are on CeeDee Lamb, and I think with very, very, very good reason. I think at 15th, 14th overall, I don't love it there as much just because I think there's some running backs there, like Mixon, like Swift, that I like a lot. But yeah, I mean, certainly no problem with CeeDee Lamb. Let's go to Nyheim Hines. So Frank Reich sends out the bat signal. I mean, anytime you specifically call out fantasy people, you're sending out the bat signal. Frank Reich said, if I was a fantasy owner, I'd consider drafting Nyheim Hines. Now, the implication is that with Matt Ryan there, Nyheim Hines is going to have a very big role. We saw last year, Jonathan Taylor came off the field a lot in passing situations for Nyheim Hines. You can make a case maybe Matt Ryan checks down more than Carson Wentz did, or Evan, is this just a normal BS that we hear from coaches in the offseason who are always talking about running backs catching more passes?
Well, as last season progressed, you remember Jonathan Taylor really took on more of a 3-down role.
Mm-hmm.
Nyheim Hines was playing a lot early. The Colts started winning, which helps, any alleged 2-down back, but he started playing more in passing situations. So this comment from Frank Reich kind of goes against what we saw in terms of the recency and how the backfield evolved over the course of 2021. Yeah. Hey, I'm all about drafting Nyheim Hines. It's just where are you going to draft him? And are you going to bump him up 2 ADP rounds because of what Frank Reich said? I mean, this backup unit for the Colts right now behind Jonathan Taylor is not very impressive. I mean, Philip Lindsay, I think he kind of had his moment. And then Tyson Williams, they just picked up. He would be the number 4. Nyheim Hines is the clear number 2 in, I think, a reliable, bankable offense behind a running back who's going to get a lot of touches and is going to be at greater injury risk the more he touches the ball. And the Colts are going to feed the heck out of Jonathan Taylor. So I think Nyheim Hines is a really good pick. It's just, when you hear the coach saying that, like, oh, do we got to take him in the 6th round now? No. I do think he's a good pick, like in the 10th round.
Yeah. It's just more, I think it's kind of BS that they're going to use Nyheim Hines in very clear passing situations. I mean, his snap count started to go down, but he's still 4 targets, 2, 1, 4, 3 targets to end the season. I just, it's hard for me to get excited about this role exactly. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to call BS on Frank Reich there that we need to be drafting Nyheim Hines. Let me just check here where he's going real quick. Yeah, he's going around the 149th overall. So, yeah, I mean, 10th, 11th round is where he's going. I'm certainly not slamming the keyboard for him there. We have him 169th overall in our rankings.
Yeah, I mean, I think that 10th, 11th round is fine for Nyheim Hines. He's got somewhat of a floor, and he's got upside if something happens to Jonathan Taylor. I mean, it would become a committee if Jonathan Taylor were to go down. You know, I think Philip Lindsay would be involved. Maybe Tyson Williams will make the team. But I think Nyheim Hines would be the lead back in that scenario in a bankable offense. And he's also a pretty good best ball pick because he'll contribute a few spiked weeks over the course of the season.
Yeah, I guess I think if Jonathan Taylor goes down, that I can't see Nyheim Hines getting more than like 8, 9 carries, you know?
But carries suck anyways. So
right. Yeah, it's just being on the field more would obviously be good for him, and he could catch 4, 5, 6 passes in that scenario for sure. I know. I'm interrupting the video. Wah. But if you're enjoying this video and want to see more fantasy football and DFS content like it, please just take 2 seconds, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. Really does go a long way for us, and we'd appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and now back to the show. Antonio Gibson. So this has become kind of a controversial topic of the offseason. To me, it's wildly clear from everything Ron Rivera is saying, they want to use 3 running backs. They're going to use Antonio Gibson. They're going to use Brian Robinson. They're going to use J.D. McKissic. The problem is that, like, when J.D. McKissic is in on every pass down, you can't really afford to split the early down work. And so whereas Ron Rivera used to say, oh, Antonio Gibson can be our Christian McCaffrey, now he's saying we're going to use Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson like Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams. You know, these early down backs who are sharing early down work and have no path to pass down work, that scares me. That said, the ADP has responded. I mean, you can get Antonio Gibson now in like the 4th or 5th round a lot. So, you know, I think the field is adjusting properly. Maybe they've gone too far because I want to bet on Antonio Gibson's talent. But you see what I'm saying about about Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson sharing early down work. What do you think about all this stuff with the Washington football team Commanders backfield?
Well, Ron Rivera made the comparison between, without even including the J.D. McKissic aspect, Ron Rivera made the comparison between Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson to Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams. You know, everything goes back in time for these older NFL coaches. You know, they just love the successes that they had 20 years ago. Yeah. You know, and they're trying to relive that.
Believe me, buddy, I know the feeling very well. There's Glory Days song, Bruce Springsteen. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, if you remember, like Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams, they were 2 premium talents at the running back position, and people were still got very frustrated by their production playing in the same backfield. You know, and then now you add in the J.D. McKissic aspect where you're taking away all the catches. I don't think I would take Antonio Gibson in the 4th round. Okay. I mean, I would not do that. You know, we talk about the 3-man backfield situation. You have to have a really good offense. You know, top 5 offense for a 3-man backfield to be able to extract consistent, reliable fantasy production from any individual member. You have to have an awesome offense, and I don't think the Washington Commanders are going to have an awesome offense. Now, somebody goes down, maybe we can extract some, you know, what we got with D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart, which was a frustrating level of production, but that would be better than than how it projects right now. I mean, J.D. McKissic is just such a reception suck on the other dudes.
I think the key for Antonio Gibson is J.D. McKissic going down. In other words, if J.D. McKissic went down, you would get a portion of the early down work for Antonio Gibson and all of the pass down work. And that would be an awesome role for Antonio Gibson. His ADP has sunk to 61st overall. And by the way, I'm going to start back up for you guys listening to the pod last year. I did that Market Mondays where I would talk about how ADPs are moving and what I thought about it. Antonio Gibson's down to 61st overall ADP. I mean, we're starting to get down there. I would be tempted by him in that like late 5th, 6th round if it ever gets there on Antonio Gibson for sure. Speaking of the Commanders, Curtis Samuel back working full. And so the first bet we made for this offseason was Jahan Dotson under 709.5 receiving yards. And part of that is baking in Curtis Samuel being healthy. Now, we haven't seen Curtis Samuel healthy in a while, but again, he's working full in OTAs. It's at least somewhat promising. What do you think about Curtis Samuel versus Dotson versus McLaurin?
Curtis Samuel missed 12 games in his first season with Washington, 2 groin injuries and a hamstring injury. The Commanders come back. They draft Jahan Dotson 16th overall. Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson are locked into 3 receiver sets for Washington. The question then becomes, can Curtis Samuel come back, stay healthy, and beat out a list of guys that isn't real impressive? I mean, you've got De'Ami Brown, probably would be his biggest competition. Cam Sims can play a little receiver, but he's really more of a special teamer. That's how Washington views him. Antonio Gandy-Golden, probably just not going to happen for him. Kelvin Harmon, Alex Erickson, not stiff competition. I would say that De'Ami Brown probably poses his stiffest competition for that third receiver spot in 3 receiver sets. I mean, I think Curtis Samuel can win it, but I mean, there's some reason to believe that De'Ami Brown can play, even though he was very quiet as a rookie.
Yeah, I think Curtis Samuel is really likely to win that number 3 wide receiver job. I just don't think that job is very fantasy relevant given how we think Wentz is going to play. But yeah, just Curtis Samuel being healthy, I think makes Washington a better team, clearly, for sure. Let's go to some Chiefs stuff. I couldn't believe this, man. I don't know if you saw this story. Apparently last offseason, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had gallbladder surgery and got down to 160 pounds. I mean, this is the NFL, man. Yeah. I mean, we hear about everything. Anything gets reported, especially on a team like the Chiefs. How did we not know that Clyde Edwards-Helaire had gallbladder surgery last year? And this kind of gives me more hope for him this year. Like, I've been sending out trade offers for him in Dynasty. I actually encouraged us to move up Clyde Edwards-Helaire in our Dynasty rankings, which are part of the pro draft kit, which we did. I mean, he's only 23. And like, you could make a lot of excuses for him last year. And now without Tyreek Hill, with Travis Kelce in the age model, like, they need to get more out of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I know we've talked about this, but this gallbladder thing just kind of cherry on top, maybe. What did you think about all this?
Yeah, because we talked about on one of our recent shows that we might take a bull stance on Clyde Edwards-Helaire this year. And every time I've been looking at my rankings and my tiers, I'm moving them up, because I can really talk myself into this, especially when I look at the Chiefs depth chart, because you got Ronald Jones and then a whole lot of very little behind him. Tyreek Hill is gone. Darrell Williams just signed with Atlanta. Is that right? Or no, the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Damian Williams is with Atlanta.
Yeah.
Jerick McKinnon, no one has signed him.
Yeah.
Byron Pringle's gone. Demarcus Robinson's gone. It's just, they're kind of restructuring their offense, and things are going to get moved around in there. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire's competition for touches right now is pretty weak.
Yeah.
You mentioned he got down to 160. He was 207 at the combine.
Yeah. Okay? I mean, that's crazy.
So we're talking about almost 50 pounds for a dude that is 5'7". I'm like 6'5". If I lost 50 pounds tomorrow, like, that would be a lot. That would be massive. For this little of a guy to lose that much weight, it's almost like unthinkable.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. It adds to me wanting to be bullish on Clyde Edwards-Helaire at a time when a lot of people have written him off, and I kind of get why. I mean, we've gone over the reasons why.
Yeah.
We're still like a little concerned that he's just not very good.
Sure. But I'm not sure that matters that much, when you're on the Chiefs and you're.
It shouldn't. I mean, I feel like it has mattered to this point.
Yeah.
But it won't matter if he's getting 20 touches and he's getting the kind of receiving usage that we thought he might coming out of LSU based on what he did at LSU.
Yeah. And a full healthy offseason, we have him 74th overall right now. His ADP is around 80th. So we're, about a half round ahead of ADP on Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now. I'd want to stay ahead of ADP there. Speaking of the Chiefs, Mecole Hartman. So, we know the story on Mecole. I mean, everything looks good for him, especially if you buy the story that he can only run the routes that Tyreek Hill ran. And therefore, now that Tyreek's gone, we'll actually see Mecole spread his wings. I don't think MVS, I know he got a ton of money. I don't think MVS is like any type of load-bearing wide receiver. Juju, we have question marks about. I like Sky Moore. Kelsey is in the age model, still productive, of course. But, it sets up well for Mecole Hartman. The question is just like, can the dude play? And it's crazy that on this team, we have two guys like this, CH and Mecole Hartman, who it's like, if they can actually play, they're going to be really good. But it's just rare to find these guys who opportunity and where talent, I guess, means so much. So Mecole Hartman has been at minicamp. They're talking him up. Obviously, he tweaked a hamstring in minicamp, which is whatever. He'll be fine. What do you think about all the new stuff around Mecole?
Same old. I mean, we can look at he is going to get the first crack at running Tyreek's old routes, but they can't trust him like that. He's not going to get fed in the middle of the field like Tyreek Hill would at times. Travis Kelce, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's pretty formidable target competition. He's going to get a shot, but the confidence level has to be low in Mecole Hartman as a player right now.
We have him 118th overall right now. ADP is around 127. I mean, don't have to spend a lot. You can get Chief stacks with CEH and Mecole and even some other Chiefs and, MVS, Juju, whatever you want to do. And it's not that expensive. So just putting that out there. Allen Robinson, I bet on Allen Robinson 30-1. Ryan put me on 31 to be comeback player of the year for Allen Robinson. I'm not sure what that's out now, but I mean, with Odell not re-signing with the Rams yet, or if he will at all, and with the way this team plays offense, beat writers are projecting Allen Robinson is going to be very involved in the red zone. I like being really high on Allen Robinson this year. I know we talked about, can you throw out last year because the Bears were such a train wreck? If you can throw that out, then man, Allen Robinson looks really good. We have him 70th overall right now, which is a little bit behind ADP. But what do you think about all this stuff around Allen Robinson? And what do you think about the red zone for the Rams?
I mean, he better be heavily involved in the red zone for the Rams. He's 6'3", 220 with a 42-inch vertical. Yeah. So he absolutely should be heavily involved there. Previous Allen Robinson quarterbacks from college and the pros: Matt McGloin, Christian Hackenberg, Blake Bortles, Chad Henne, Mitchell Trubisky, Chase Daniel, Nick Foles, Andy Dalton, Justin Fields. Finally getting a break with Matthew Stafford.
Yeah,
we talked about the reasons to kind of lean toward giving Allen Robinson a pass for last year, and I'm standing behind those. And I think that, I want to be ahead of ADP on Allen Robinson. Actually, I think we need to move him up.
Yeah, we're a little bit behind right now in our rankings. We'll talk through that and maybe get him a little bit higher. But yeah, I you can make a really good case for Allen Robinson. And by the way, Matthew Stafford, say what you want about Matthew Stafford. Calvin Johnson had just an outrageous fantasy career with Matthew Stafford. Now Cooper Kupp is doing the same. And I thought last year, Odell was turning into a pretty reliable fantasy receiver down the stretch there last year as well. Michael Thomas story. But we've been looking at this Chris Olave prop. And if we want to bet any Chris Olave unders, the concern is that if Michael Thomas ends up not playing or missing time or being limited or not being himself, Olave is going to look really good. But with Jarvis Landry there now and Michael Thomas and Kamara, I mean, that's a lot of targets to soak up. And so you start squeezing out Olave on the projected targets. I'm just afraid to pull the trigger because of Michael Thomas's health. And he's not even participating in OTS. I mean, this dude has barely played in 2 years? He played 7 games in the last, 2.5 years or something like that. Underhill seems confident that Michael Thomas is going to be ready for training camp, but to not even be ready for OTAs is a little concerning for me. Where are you at on Michael Thomas's health, and do you want any piece of him this year? Last year, you famously said no Michael Thomas for you, and that turned out to be right.
Yeah, he's a tough one. I wanted to, flip that around and be high on him this year because you can get him at a pretty significant discount. I've really only done one redraft draft ADP, since the NFL draft.
Sorry, ADP is 62nd overall.
Okay. Yeah, and I took him late 5th round. If he's going to be going in that range, I think I'll be pulling the trigger on him a little bit at least. I mean, I don't know. It's just, where do you think that the risk meets the potential reward? I think that's the range where he should be going in.
Yeah,
round 5, 6, on that turn.
So my concern is that a lot of what Michael Thomas was able to do was thanks to Drew Brees. Like nobody throws like 4-yard slants more accurately than Drew Brees in like 5-yard outs. And that's like Michael Thomas's game. I'm not sure that's Jameis's game. You add Olave, you add Jarvis Landry, you have Kamara. So, and then you have the health risk too. So for me, it's probably pass on Michael Thomas, but dude was so good for that, like what, 2-3 year stretch. I mean, he was outrageously good. So it's a tough fade, but I think I'm going to be on the fade for now. Travis Etienne. Good reports, full go in OTAs on Travis Etienne. And like, this is the kind of running back that I like being on. Kamara, DeAndre Swift, Christian McCaffrey, like can get some of the early down work and a lot of the pass down work. And I think that's how they're going to use Travis Etienne. You know, he had a pretty high ADP until he went down last year. What do you think about him this year? Certainly haven't spent a lot of time on him because simply he hasn't been out there.
Yeah, Travis Etienne suffered a Liz Frank fracture requiring surgery in the Jaguars' second preseason game last year. So, hey, by the preseason, he'll be a full year removed from that. He had 102 catches in his college career.
From Trevor Lawrence.
So he's got that college rapport in place. I think we could see the Jaguars take a big step forward this year under Doug Peterson, under just, normal offensive environmental conditions, as opposed to what happened last year, which, by the way, Mark Long, who's covered the Jaguars for the AP, came out with more stuff that went on behind the scenes, and it's kind of old at this point.
Yeah.
But Urban Meyer was just a big problem.
Yeah.
His competition, Travis Etienne's competition, is James Robinson and 5th-round pick Snoop Connor out of Ole Miss. Now, James Robinson, we know he can play in the league. Definitely. He's a starting caliber running back in the league. But he has no ties to this regime, and he was undrafted. And those guys tend to be pushed back on the back burner, because at the end of the year, the GM can't go to the owner and say, oh, our leading rusher, we picked him, in the 6th round, or we got him in undrafted free agency. Trent Baalke had nothing to do with James Robinson going to the Jaguars. So those guys tend to get pushed on the back burner, and Travis Etienne will be elevated in an offense that should elevate.
Yeah. And
so he's a guy that, I think he is easy to talk yourself into.
The archetype of running back that I want to draft in fantasy is Travis Etienne. Also, if you guys read Jack Miller's article about playoff schedules for best ball, Jaguars' schedule week 15, 16, 17 relative to the rest of their schedule is really soft. And so they're going to have good implied team totals there in the final 3 weeks when all the money is there in underdog. Let's go to Irv Smith. Good to see Irv Smith as a full go, man. And this Vikings tight end room is really thin. And I wanted to be all in on Irv Smith last year. Of course, he got hurt and that was painful, missed the whole year. But Irv Smith is still really young. I mean, he came out, he was so young. He's so athletic. And this offense, like, schemes plays to tight ends in the red zone. Like, I don't know how many balls or yards Irv Smith is going to catch, but he's going to have his opportunities to score touchdowns. We're out on Irv Smith now that we know he's been a full go at OTAs. His ADP is like 140 or so.
Yeah, Irv Smith tore his meniscus last September 1. So by week 1, which I think is 9/11, somewhere right around there.
Yep.
He will be over a full month removed. No Tyler Conklin. He's gone. His top backups are Ben Ellefson and Johnny Munt.
Yep.
Okay. The Vikings could definitely throw the ball more under Kevin O'Connell. Mike Zimmer was constantly on his OCs about not throwing the ball aggressively. I think the Vikings could absolutely open it up under their new coach. And Irv Smith is only doesn't turn 24 until August. He came out of Alabama. He was really young relative to that draft class. Yeah. So he should have some good miles ahead of him. And he has flashed, no question, the ability to be, a high-end tight end one producer on occasion. Adam Thielen, the arrow might be pointing down a little bit on him. So I think there's a lot of receiving opportunity and potentially more receiving opportunity than people expect because the offense could change for the better under Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, I like being high on Irv Smith. We have him right now ahead of ADP, about 10 spots ahead of ADP, right in like that Robert Tonyan, Tyler Higbee, Mike Gesicki kind of range. Actually, Mike Gesicki is a little bit higher, but yeah, somewhere in that range. But I don't think people are going to be on Irv Smith because he's been out of sight, out of mind for so long, and he's coming off the injury. So I certainly like that one. 49ers. I should have mentioned this when we went to the Jimmy G stuff, but so the quote from 49ers, this was beat reporter stuff, and I'm curious what you think, Evan, here, real or BS. Beat reporter said 49ers still view Eli Mitchell as their top option in the run game as they open up OTAs, but they also envision Tyrion Davis-Price emerging as a bigger, more powerful complement. I don't know if you had a chance to look at Tyrion Davis-Price coming out. I think those will be the top two backs for San Francisco, but I hate to assume anything on the 49ers, and I really hate to believe beat writers on anything 49ers related because they've just been...
After what happened last year?
Just stone wrong so much. So what do you think about 49ers backfield?
Yeah, so behind Eli Mitchell and Tyrion Davis-Price, they have Jeff Wilson, Trey Sermon, and JaMychal Hasty. Jeff Wilson, I think, is like a fringe roster player for them, but like a good number 3 back. Trey Sermon looked like he was running with a piano on his back last year, like he was running at fullback speed. And, I mean, they couldn't play him because he wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. And I think he might get cut. Like, it was really rough for Trey Sermon. Something's got to change fast for Trey Sermon to be to be considered an NFL roster caliber running back. And then they have JaMychal Hasty, who's also a fringe, NFL player. So I think the depth chart right now sets up pretty well for Eli Mitchell to be the 1, Tyrion Davis to be the power complement, and Jeff Wilson to be the number 3. They took Tyrion Davis number 3rd overall in the draft at LSU. He averaged only 4.6 yards per carry in his college. That's not good. At the college level, only 28 catches in 3 years. But he's a big back, and he's going to get opportunity. I don't know. I'm still kind of betting on Elijah Mitchell here. The problem is that even in the best-case scenario for Elijah Mitchell, like he's not going to catch passes. Remember, that was a big problem for him last year, and I think it will continue because, with Jimmy Garoppolo there, I mean, he was willing to check down, but I think that Trey Lance will be less willing to check down. He's going to be more of an aggressive downfield passer. And, the pass volume as an entity will go down in San Francisco because they're going to run the ball more with Trey Lance.
Yeah, 100%. And we're well ahead of ADP on Eli Mitchell. I mean, we have him 52nd overall. His ADP is 67th. These type of backs scare me for sure. I don't think his role is secure, but not as secure as some other guys that I could think of because he plays for Kyle Shanahan. And then also we have the pass catching issue. So we'll see on Eli Mitchell. It's definitely not a target for me right now. But yeah, Tyrion Davis-Price is going so late, and I think that makes some sense. He's going 171st overall. A couple more small ones here. The Kadarius Toney thing. The first thing that we got from Kadarius Toney was good. I mean, OC came out and said, Kadarius has been here. He's been listening. He's been doing this thing. He's been in the playbook. Because that was a lot of off-field stuff. But in terms of targets per route run, and again, I think earning targets is a skill. Kadarius Toney's targets per route run last year were absolutely massive. And I mean, with Daboll there, I think that this can actually be a good passing offense. And Toney is so explosive. Now, he had a little bit of an issue. He's rehabbing some knee scope. But man, I mean, Daboll said he's encouraging Daniel Jones to cut it loose. Kadarius Toney is going to earn targets. I like him a lot. I like him more than Wendell. I understand that there's downside on Toney, but Adam Shepard, Toney, and Wendell, and I guess I throw Galladay into the mix. I don't think it's that crazy to think that Toney can lead this team in targets. What do you think about all the Toney stuff around OTAs?
Yeah, I mean, the issue is that it always seems like it's something new with Kadarius Toney. Some new concern bubbling to the surface. Now it's the knee scope. He's not practicing, right? So, but I mean, he's expected to be ready for training camp. It sounds like a minor arthroscopic thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell yourself a story about him. It's the target competition for the Giants right now is Kenny Galladay, who knows if he's going to show up at this point. Sterling Shepard tore his Achilles last week 15.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine that he's going to be ready for week 1. Darius Slayton, who we've seen, a flash player, really inconsistent. Wan'Dale Robinson, who I think most people would agree that They reached for Wan'Dale Robinson with the 43rd overall pick. Now he could come in and play the slot. I mean,
yeah,
but he's so small. And then Saquon Barkley.
yeah.
So I mean, there are ways that you could definitely see Kadarius Toney climbing to the top of that pecking order by the first few weeks of the season if he can stay healthy, if he can kind of overcome these little things that seem to follow him everywhere.
I mean, so the market is actually in line with what I was saying. ADP on these guys, I think, is too low, but the ADP is in the order I said. Toney has the highest ADP at 110, and then Kenny Golladay, then Wan'Dale, then Sterling, then Slayton. One thing I'd also say is that you remove Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph from this team, and they were earning some targets. Now you have Ricky Seals-Jones and Jordan Akins, who I think won't earn as many targets, so there's just more targets to go around for running back. But yeah, I mean, 110, I'm smashing the button for Kadarius at 110 and just hoping for a ceiling outcome, which, targets per route run is a really powerful stat, man.
Yeah, and I think that, in any scenario, as long as they can get Daniel Jones to just play at a competent level, like Brian Daboll is going to be aggressive in terms of their pass volume as a team. Yep.
We already mentioned David Bell stuff on the pod with Ryan Reynolds, had some 100-to-1 to be him Rookie of the Year, but beat writers coming out calling David Bell the front runner to replace Jarvis Landry in the slot. That's been a voluminous role in the past with Baker. I don't know what it'll be like with either Deshaun Watson or Jacoby Brissett. But yeah, I mean, David Bell in a slot role for the Browns right out of the gate sounds exciting to me. He's going very, very late. What do you think, that's real or BS that David Bell can replace Jarvis Landry's role?
I think it's real. I mean, David Bell had awesome production in 3 years at Purdue, 232 catches, 22 touchdowns, averaged 8.5 catches and 120.5 yards per game in 11 games last year. He ran 4.65. He's not super big. He's 6'1", 212, but he's big enough. I think the slot is the perfect place for him. His target competition is Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Njoku, Harrison Bryant. Not that intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
When will Deshaun Watson play? Because I think that the Browns are likely to start the season with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, but then the whole dynamic of the offense can shift quickly when you get a hyper-aggressive, improvisational quarterback that's willing to throw the ball voluminously in Deshaun Watson. I think that the Browns will probably be, I don't think they're going to be as committed to the run this year as soon as they get Deshaun Watson, as soon as he's ready to play, as soon as he's cleared to play.
They have the best running back room in the league. I mean, they go 3 deep, obviously, with very good players in the running back room. But yeah, and on the Deshaun Watson thing, from what I saw, it looks like something's going to happen next week. Like, hopefully next week we'll get something on Deshaun Watson.
We're recording this on Friday. We even think that it's possible something could come down today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last thing I have here from Minicamps, real or BS, out of Seattle, the reports are Geno Smith is ahead of Drew Lock. That one kind of surprised me because I thought Drew Lock, they've been talking up Drew Lock so much. They've seen Geno Smith. I kind of think that this was BS because Geno's been there, but there's not that much difference between these guys. I mean, they both suck. Right. So, I mean, I don't know. Who do you think goes into camp ahead between Geno and Drew Lock? And this assumes they don't somehow get Jimmy Garoppolo or someone like that, or Baker.
I can't believe you said that about Greg Rosenthal's boy, Geno Smith. He's been saying that Geno Smith is good for years. Geno Smith played well last year when given the opportunity. 4 appearances, 3 starts. He had 103 passer rating. Drew Lock's career passer rating is 79.3. He's never reached 90 in a full season. Yeah. So I think Geno Smith deserves the first crack. Drew Lock sucks. That I can say with confidence.
Yeah.
And Geno Smith is not the answer. I can also say that with confidence, but I think he deserves it, honestly. I mean, I think he played well enough last year to deserve this opportunity to lead the Seahawks offense until he inevitably gets benched and they go to Drew Lock, and then he stinks and they go back to Geno Smith. And that's kind of how I envision this playing out this year,
Yeah. Not going to be pretty. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed this edition of Real or BS from Minicamps. Be sure to keep your eyes peeled to see which NFL players are in the best shape of their life, allegedly, on Twitter. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to this on anywhere podcasts are found, please hit the subscribe button. It is indeed free. Helps us out a ton. Appreciate you all. 4. Evan. 4. Producer Luke. I'm Adam. Good luck, everybody.